What's up, guys? This is Matt Singer from ScreenCrush.com, and today we're counting down the top 5 walking away from explosion shots in movie history. It's the ultimate show of movie cool, setting something on fire and then walking away like you didn't even notice. Oh, what's that? A gigantic fireball? Sorry, I was being too awesome to react to that.
Oh, whatever.
It's become such a cliche that it's even been made fun of in action comedies like The Other Guys.
What accounting firm is closed at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday?
Oh, this is a shithole.
Oh my God, how do they walk away in movies without flinching when it explodes behind them? There's no way! I call bullshit on that!
But in the right context, it's still pretty great, and I can watch the classic examples over and over. Just for the sake of fairness and narrowing down our options a little bit, we're restricting ourselves to people specifically leaving the scenes of explosions. Not dying monsters, not diggers ripping through trains, not car fires. Although Angela Bassett walking away from that burning car and waiting to exhale is maybe the most badass thing in movie history. With the ground rules set, let's count down the best of the best, starting with number 5, Malone. Okay, this one is pretty obscure, and unless you're a huge Burt Reynolds fan or your last name actually is Malone, odds are you've never seen it and maybe even never heard of it. Malone is a 1987 film where Burt stars as former CIA agent Richard Malone, who winds up in a small town and runs afoul of local underworld types. It's a little bit Shane and a little bit First Blood and a lot of Burt Reynolds. At the end of the movie, Burt makes an assault on the bad guy's compound and blows it up real good. Now, normally the cool walk away from the explosion is judged on a scale of impassivity. You're not supposed to react. But in this case, I like the little flinch because it kind of suggests this thing was so big, even Burt Reynolds was caught off guard by it. Bonus points for the mustache, bonus points for the full-on strut, bonus points for faking out the sheriff with the finger gun afterwards, and major bonus points for doing this all in a turtleneck. Have you ever tried to look tough in a turtleneck? It's almost impossible. The only thing that's harder than trying to look tough in a turtleneck is trying to look tough in a dickie. That's just the Burt Reynolds magic. On to number 4, Mad Max. In the first leg of his journey toward Fury Road, Maine Force Patrol Officer Max Rockatansky goes on a quest for revenge after a gang kills his wife and son. In the film's final moments, spoiler alert, Max handcuffs the last living gangster to some wreckage and starts a fuse. He gives the guy a hacksaw and says he can cut off the cuffs in 10 minutes or saw through his ankle in 5. Ankle. What is a horror film? Nah, it, they'll never buy it. Anyway, Max leaves the dude to decide what to do and drives off. And then... not a flinch. Not a moment of hesitation where he wonders whether the guy lived or died. Not even a glance in the rearview mirror. Now that is some attentive driving. Number 3, Desperado. Robert Rodriguez made his directorial debut, El Mariachi, on a budget of just $7,000. For its sequel, Desperado, Rodriguez had somewhere in the neighborhood of $7 million, and he put that money to use on some eye-catching visuals. In one bullet-riddled chase scene, Antonio Banderas and Salma Hayek must escape from a bunch of bad guys and a fire, and the only way out is by jumping across a rooftop. After a smooch for good luck, they do make their way across, but there are still some dudes with guns shooting at them from below. Good thing El Mariachi brought some grenades. That is a very large explosion for 2 grenades. And I love how the further they get from the explosion, the slower they walk. How do they know there aren't more bad guys waiting to shoot them the second the flames die down? They don't, which is what makes it so cool. The shot was so cool, in fact, it even wound up on some of the film's posters and home video covers. It must have worked, too, because Desperado helped launch Rodriguez's career, and it spawned another sequel, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, a few years later. I can't help but think, though, that it would have done even better at the box office if they had just called the movie People Walking Away from Explosions. Next up, number 2, Man on Fire. In this 2004 film from director Tony Scott, Denzel Washington plays a former CIA officer turned bodyguard who fails to protect little Dakota Fanning when she's kidnapped. And so he sets off to find the men who did it and get revenge. What is it about trying to get revenge that makes you walk away from explosions very slowly? Eventually, Denzel's character tracks down one of the men responsible, ties him to the hood of a car, and sticks a bomb inside his butt. Before we do anything else, can I just say I love this line?
Don't move. Don't move. Don't move.
That is just great. Well, the guy, who might want to consider shaving his back at some point, I don't know. He doesn't move, but after he gets the information he wants, Denzel blows him up anyway.
Hey.
I guess at that point, the back shaving is kind of a moot point. You thought it was called Man on Fire because Denzel Washington was, like, mad and stuff? No. It's called Man on Fire because there is a man literally on fire, and Denzel Washington blew him up, and now he's walking away from him in slow motion. Now it's time for the number 1 person walking away from an explosion in movie history. Conair. In this movie, which is really one of the most underrated action flicks of the entire 1990s, Nicolas Cage and several horsemanes stapled to the back of his head play a good guy who winds up on a plane transporting a bunch of bad guys. Worst of the worst is Cyrus Grissom, a.k.a. Cyrus the Virus. He's played by John Malkovich, obviously, and after the bad guys are able to land the plane, he gets into all kinds of trouble. The pyrotechnics begin like this.
Looks like you missed your connection.
We were coming to get you. Please.
Anara.
Stop for 1 second. Let's rewind.
Looks like you missed your connection.
Okay, we have a plane pun.
Please.
Anara.
We have a guy turning his own name into a pun. And we haven't even come close to walking away from the explosion yet. I mean, this is clearly the number 1 choice. I don't think we need any more evidence, but let's continue anyway. So that one cigarette creates all this chaos. Nicolas Cage and the dead animal on his head have to leap through that tiny little window in the door to escape the explosion. But not Cyrus. The rest of his crew look back, cover their eyes, they cower in fear. He keeps right on walking, away from the explosion and into our hearts forever. For Screen Crush, I'm Matt Singer. Thanks for watching, and for even more, make sure to subscribe, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and get the latest movie and TV news on ScreenCrush.com.